Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whichever part of the world you are watching from, and a very warm welcome to the 2025 NDC Partnership Youth Engagement Forum. As colleagues join, we want to make sure everyone is able to follow the discussions. So we have live interpretation into French and Spanish today. For those of you who would like to make use of this, you can do so by clicking the globe world icon in your Zoom toolbar and select your preferred language. I think we have an image on the next slide, please. You can also select mute original language if you are having any issues hearing the interpretation. Some very quick notes on housekeeping. We kindly ask that you keep your microphone muted for the first portion of our program today. There will be time after 2 shorter sessions where we will go into breakout rooms for discussion, and you'll be able to engage with others here today. There will be much shared. If something resonates with you, please feel free to share it online using the hashtag YEF2025. And if you have any technical issues during the event, please use the chat function, again, at the bottom of your screen, and someone on the team will support you. Lastly, the main room portions, of this event will be recorded and shared on our virtual platforms after today. The breakout rooms will be recorded simply for note-taking. And the same goes for the 3 other events that are part of the YEF 2025 program this month. So if you aren't able to join, or if you have colleagues that weren't able to join today, but wish to hear the exchanges, these will be posted widely. So once again, thank you very much for joining us here today. This is the first of 4 events co-hosted by UNDP and the NDC Partnership on the topic of meaningful youth engagement in NDCs 3.0. We're here today because of an incredibly successful regional consultation process carried out earlier this year by YoungGo and the International Indigenous Youth Forum on Climate Change, or IIYFC, which gathered input from over 700 young people around the globe on this most pressing climate challenges and strengthening youth participation in policymaking. So we will shortly turn to a representative from this collaborative effort to learn more. But our goal today is to share a dialogue around these topics, strengthening youth engagement between governments and their communities on the road to COP30 and in the longer term with sustainable implementation of NDCs. Nearly 30 countries have already submitted their NDCs 3.0, and the remainder have ambitions to finalize theirs before the end of this year. So according to ongoing UNDP analysis on gender and social inclusion, about half of the submitted NDCs acknowledge the meaningful participation of youth, highlight their role in climate decision-making, and include measures to boost youth engagement through better access to resources, to trainings, to technology transfers. This all reflects a positive trend in youth inclusion and youth-sensitive measures across both mitigation and adaptation. And from the NDC partnership side, from analysis of our member requests for support, countries are seeking to build institutional capacity to engage youth, to strengthen climate education and support youth-led entrepreneurship, as well as raise awareness of climate-related risks and opportunities. Countries are increasingly recognizing the importance of youth as stakeholders in NDC planning and implementation. But we know meaningful engagement will require increased and better targeted support. So as the NDC 3.0 cycle unfolds throughout the remainder of this year, integrating youth as contributors and not just constituents will be essential to building inclusive, resilient, and forward-looking NDCs. All of which is why we are here today with you. So we have an engaging program over the next 90 minutes. We are going to first hear from representatives of YoungGo and IIYFC, hosted by Youth for Climate, who came together for a collaborative effort to gather input from young people all over the globe on these core elements of meaningful youth engagement in the NDC process. To drive these learnings home, we will then welcome 2 speakers, one representing young people and one from a national government, to dig deeper into the themes coming out of these consultations, as well as their own lived experiences. And finally, we will gather in breakout rooms to process all that we have heard today and talk through what will be required to better support meaningful engagement in the near term. We will close then with a short video from the Presidency Youth Climate Champions, which will be a very exciting kind of kickoff for the leading us into the months ahead. So the chat function is open. Please share questions as you hear the presentations, the fireside discussion, and know that we are also all eager to get to the breakout rooms to share with you and learn from your experiences. So it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker today, Miriam Castillo Orozco. Miriam is a PhD candidate focused on environmental governance based on the pluriverse, indigenous reciprocal relationships, and complex thinking. She is a member of the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Climate Change of the UNFCCC. She has been recognized globally for her work and thought leadership, and we are very lucky to have her here today to share the results of the regional consultations on meaningful youth engagement in NDCs. Miriam, thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Hannah, and thank you so much for the introductions. And it is my pleasure to share today the efforts and the results of the regional consultations on meaningful youth engagement in NDCs. Next, please. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah, thank you. So what is it? The regional consultation, oh, sorry, previous one. Thank you. Oh, we're going. Why is it moving so fast? Okay, perfect. That's good. So first, what is it? The Regional Consultation on Meaningful Youth Engagement in NDCs 3.0 were virtual, open for all youth across the globe consultations to identify specific regional issues and barriers of youth engagement and to create key regional youth policy recommendations for meaningful youth engagement in the NDC process. We had the pleasure to work with UNDP and YONGO as III, as we call it, International Indigenous Youth Forum on Climate Change, to create this consultation to understand what youth and children wanted across the globe regarding policymaking, climate change policymaking. Next, please. And its objectives were to strengthen children and youth engagement in NDCs, gathering children and youth perspectives to inform policy change, and also to bridge the gap between state actors and non-state actors, especially children and youth. Next, please. And we saw very clear demographic data, as you can see it here in the beautiful diagram. So most of the participants were from Africa, but we also had a great participation from Asia and the Pacific. And other regions were also very active, the Latin American and the Caribbean region and the Arab states as well. So in this demographic data, we saw that 714 children and youth from different 92 countries share their thoughts about the NDC processes. And the average of age of the participants were 28 years old, which tell us that there's an average of interest to be engaged within the climate change transition globally. Thank you. Next. And the barriers identified to meaningful youth engagement were clearly lack of information and awareness, limited accessibility, lack of capacity building and training, among others. We saw that there is the least one was technical complexity and language barriers, because we can see that youth is dominating different languages and they are understanding more and more the challenges of climate change. Next, please. And strategies for effective youth engagement were prominently youth-led climate action support and financial and logistical support for youth engagement. This is very important in how we are planning to engage our youth across different countries if there's no financial support or there's not youth representation. So I think this is very important to highlight from the consultation, was that there is support needed, financial and logistically, and also that representation is active in party delegations. Next, please. I am going to, okay, just specify here my language, because I think for the translation is not. Okay, perfect. And then the policy recommendations were capacity building and education programs, support for youth innovation and entrepreneurship, and integration of youth into national and local climate policies. However, we see also that there is presence of topics such as legal and policy reforms for youth inclusion, and also inclusive and decentralized stakeholder consultations. Next, please. And there is also information about the support needed for meaningful youth engagement in NDCs. Right now, I'm providing a summary of the main observations because I don't want to make this too long. However, if you can see, there are many topics that were addressed, but I think right now we can talk about that the support needed is very related to capacity building and training, and also networking and collaboration platforms, and also having opportunities for regional and international engagement. However, technical and legal support is also needed, and recognition and valued contributions is also needed. There is also a topic about institutionalized youth representation. Next one, please. So the regional trends and youth priorities were that in Africa, there was a strong participation, financial and institutional barriers emphasized. From Asia and the Pacific, there was a focus on technical training, translation of NDCs, that's very important, language accessibility, and youth inclusion in disaster and climate resilience. For Latin America and the Caribbean, there was an emphasis in indigenous inclusion, political participation, and justice-centered policies. For Europe and North America, the main topics were transparency, intergenerational equity, and formal roles for youth. And for the Arab states, there was a call for reforms in civic spaces and protection of youth voices. And finally, in Australia, there was a smaller sample, but it was emphasized that education and climate curriculum changes are needed. Next one, please. And from the consultation, the recommendations done were to establish formalized youth bodies linked to NDC governance and national and local levels, and also mandated youth engagement in climate policy consultations and party delegation, and also to have funding directly for youth-led climate action training and regional collaboration, and also to make more accessible the NDC process for youth, and also with translated documents and toolkits to make this information youth and children friendly. Then to strengthen and monitoring the role of youth through policy with independent accountability mechanisms. And finally, that it is key to support indigenous youth, especially from those that are most exposed to climate change, and to exposed communities, and also young people with disabilities. Next, please. And well, we are coming to the fireside chat, so I'll let Hannah to continue with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for sharing these insights with the audience today. We're super excited to be able to present the early results of these consultations and to continue having these conversations over the next few months. We're really, really excited to learn more from what continues to come out of these conversations. And I think it's really well reflected in the responses that we heard from you in your registration for this event today. Lots of calls for capacity building, for networking opportunities, and then quite a bit around partnerships and accessible financing as well. I'm super excited to hear more from the folks on this call around how to make the NDC processes more accessible for young people. So hoping folks want to dig into this a little bit in the breakout rooms. But thank you again, Miriam. We will now turn to the next portion of our agenda, which is the fireside chat for the next 20 minutes. We are very pleased to welcome two of our colleagues. The first is Nika Gogatishvili, a senior specialist with the Environment and Climate Change Department at the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture in Georgia. Nika is also a PhD candidate in human geography, focusing on social and political dimensions of climate resilience. He is actively involved in policy processes in Georgia and on a global level, bringing the perspective of a new generation committed to driving meaningful climate action. Welcome, Nika. And next we have Mara Gilan. She is a climate advocate and policy consultant specialized in global governance, human rights, and intergenerational equity. Mara is a member of Youngo's policy team, co-leads the development of the Global Youth Statement, and advocates for youth engagement in UN climate negotiations. Mara's studies and research also focus on global politics, climate policy, and climate assemblies. Thank you both so much for being here today. We're very excited to learn from your experiences, and I will turn the floor to Mara to kick off our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah. I'm so happy to see all of you today for this event, and eager to dive into my questions for Nika. First of all, I want to acknowledge the fact that Nika is also a young person. He, as you can see, he's one of us. And I'm wondering how you manage as a young professional within the ministry to navigate youth priorities and perspectives and institutional priorities.
Well, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, everybody. It's nice to be here, and it's a great honor for me to be in this platform. Many thanks, dear Mara, for your question. It's very interesting. So first of all, working in a public organization is quite a big responsibility. It's not because you are having many mandates or you are having like big responsibility regarding policy documents or legislation or secondary legislation. Not only about this, but basically the fact that you are in charge of the policy part about this very big topic such as climate change is quite big responsibility. Of course, you need to balance many things between your work, your like user perspectives, your innovations, some sort of innovations that basically young people are giving to the table for policymaking processes. And it's quite a hard process, but this is exactly where you can find really good time and joyful thing, you know, like you can also have like a professional and specialized experience within the working process, and also at the same time you are having your young experience here on the table. Besides the fact that you have to work on the policy documents, you are attending many big and important events such as UNFCCC COP, right? So for me, being as a COP negotiator, it's just not only a part of the process to be a part of the delegation, you know, it's part of the like be the voice of young people from Georgia. So when I was sitting on the table and I was negotiating on the different at the COP, one of the main responsibilities that I was always keeping in mind was that I was representing my own country and I was representing Georgia and EU. So on this really big global platform. Yeah, that's very big mix of responsibilities and actual young person's perspectives.
Thank you very much, Nika. I'm also wondering if you could give us an example of how youth input has shaped climate policy in Georgia.
Yes, that's a very nice question. Basically, young people are very interested in climate change processes, not only like international or global challenges that the climate change is giving to us and what we are facing, but from the point of our country's view, there are many big processes that are coming, and all the time and every season, it's quite systematic and it's quite effective for our country. Georgia is really a small country and it's quite mountainous country, so there is really many glaciers, and this glacier melting process, it causes a lot of climate change related disasters and processes, for example, floodings. Also, like we are having severe weather events quite often times lately, and this is quite intense, and these intensifying processes make people believe and think more actively about this process. And for the young people, it's generally quite understandable that the process is coming and it's already here. It's not like after 10-year tendency, or it's not really far-reaching problem. It's really close to us and for our country. Therefore, young people are trying to think, focus, and act toward climate change or against climate change. And this process is quite common, and it's getting gradually more and more common. There are different type of organization, non-government organizations, civil society, and initiative networks who are basically working on the grassroots level activism. Some of them are working on the project and program based activism, which is also part of the really very big programs. And I would like to say that many of the activists, we are having quite good collaboration, because when we are drafting policy documents or strategic documents which are about climate change, we always have consultation with climate activists, because their voice is very important. And as it often happens, young people are basically activists in our country, and their voice and experience and perspectives are, of course, very important for us, because most of the time they are giving a lot of practical examples. They are having more, I would say, more practical experience with communicating with local people, not only in Tbilisi, in the capital of Georgia, but in the regions as well, where sometimes it's so hard for policymakers to have this type of communication, right? So and these young perspectives and these beliefs are creating more like make policy process more, I would say, relevant and authentic. It's not like I would say when we realized that involving young people in the process, it became more authentic process. It was not like just a design of the document or a strategic document or action plan of any environmental document. But now, since we have more common understanding that people, what responsibilities and needs they do have, we are having different attitude towards creation of policy documents, which is quite important part in my work generally. Beside of this part, we are having public consultations and public events when we are basically when we are developing or formulating different types of documents. We are having a lot of the obligations. So some of them are coming from the Aarhus Convention, some of them are coming from the Georgian legislation, that we have to consult with the people, and we always try to balance this age gap. Sometimes we try to age and gender gap. We try to specifically ask more people about the process, about the document characteristics, about the details that we are going to present for the government then, or that we are going to give or send out for the parliament, because they have to adopt the document finally, right? So, and yeah, this part is very active in our case, because this process, when public policymakers, like public servants, are having close collaboration and communication with climate activists, it always makes the process more smoothly and more, I would say, nice to work. And as I said, most of the climate activists are quite young people. Yeah. So Last year, Georgian young people made a local conference of youth, which was one of the very important events in terms of climate change declaration. And Georgian people prepared the declaration, and it was basically all the aspects and relevant terms which have to be involved in the documents that the ministry is working on. Now we have included some of the aspects from the EOS Declaration of Georgian Youth to the NDC document, which is, I would say, quite good process. As I know, NDC document is still ongoing, so it still has some sort of finalization because it's stopped with different institutions. It has to be agreed with different institutions, but as far as I remember, there are many aspects related EU's engagement and EU's related activities involved in the NDC document. And if I see or review this process retrospectively, it's quite nice because before that, there were less experience that EO's voices are reflected in any of the documents. It was just a policy document which only authentically were emphasizing environmental aspects, not only about these social dimensions, which are quite important nowadays, in terms of climate change, of course.
And I know that's also one of your research topics, right? The social and political dimensions. It's really interesting to hear about the different forms of engagement that exist in Georgia. And you actually anticipated my next question, because I wanted to ask you about how youth are actually involved in the NDC process, and it feels like Elkoi might be part of the answer. Are there other ways of engagement in the NDC process, specifically, whether in development or in the implementation of the NDC?
Yes. So last year, it's really a nice question because last year, with the partnership of the UNDP and with the NDC partnership processes, so Georgian working group decided to create this working group platform for creating and updating NDC. And it automatically included many experts, young professionals for updating this process. And it was a very nice experience because young people were able to work with the experienced experts, and it was very face-to-face experience, let's say. And this process really encouraged more engagement of young people in the process, and it was really nice in terms of this process. Besides of this, there are other programs and projects which partially is connected to the young people engagement, and it also is based on the programs. But a little bit sad thing here is that some programs, when they are finishing and when they end, some sort of networks does not really last longer, and we need some sort of more like a stability in terms of network in this kind of communication. So I would say there are still many gaps regarding these processes. And another gap might be also regarding capacity building processes. So I know personally a lot of young people who really are willing to participate more actively in the processes, and they are really willing to take part in the climate change related processes, not only in the documents development, but in the general processes. But in many of the aspects, there is not sufficient understanding of the government processes or government documents, or working with this. All of these documents are quite bureaucratic, and it's the same with many countries, right? So, and youth engagement plus capacity building is very important and crucial part. Otherwise, it might be very not really it's going to be quite artificial if we just put some young people to the table, and that's it. Yeah, we permanently need capacity building activities for this, and I know that it's quite hard, but it's necessity for this period.
Thank you so much, Nika. I think one takeaway for me from your answers is the fact that youth participation in the decision-making processes isn't just, for the sake of it. It also makes the result of the decision much better. And it's something that I feel governments need to become aware of, and incorporate more. I'll hand it over to you.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's quite so like when people are trying to focus about EOS engagement in the processes, most of the time they need some sort of evidence. Or why do we have to like let young people do this work? So public governments or organizations or public servants sometimes think that there should be some proof or evidence or research about EOS engagement. Why is it important? So this type of research might enlarge or enrich these processes, and it will like encourage the young people's more active engagement in the processes. So this is really important. Besides of this, in many of the countries, like not only in Georgia but in many of the countries, young people are less interested with this topic. So I know that there are many active people who are willing to try and who really want to engage in the process, but most of the people are also not really interested because nowadays it's quite trendy that people are going for another fields, like not environmental topics, for example, AI or like IT field, programming, etc. So there are also many good professionals in this field, but sometimes there is not really sufficient job opportunities for everybody, and sometimes it happens that people are going to another direction, right? So it's quite sad, and I would say that only like willingness or only like just a wish is not enough. So like this opportunity to propose people that there are some sort of platforms, organizations, and projects who are working or that are working about the concrete topics like climate change, adaptation, mitigation. Yeah, that's going to be important part. Beside of this, I know that many of the countries are trying to ensure young people's engagement from the school period. And it's also really mandatory that we still do not have sufficient information and like curriculums in the secondary school, in the high school, let's say. And this is also another tricky moment because most of the time people are interested about these topics from the school years when they are like teenagers or earlier ages. But after that, they are already solid in their professional careers and they already want to know whether they become doctors or dentists or like programmers or something like this specialists. So, and I would say there are many more complex issues that need to be changed in terms of engaging more young people. But still, the trend is positive in our case because like people are trying to be more active in the processes, and there are a lot of possibilities, like beginning from the like internet possibilities and like possibilities related to capacity building, but also there is not like concrete space where any young person can go and they will ask, oh, I want to do this and I want to learn it. So there are some sort of gaps between these like possibilities, which are quite challenging sometimes to find, right? So
Yes, I have so many different lines of questioning to go through from here. I feel like one really important takeaway is the importance of organization. And if I think of one effective strategy for advocacy for youth at the national level is to organize, because that is what ensures that sustainable communication, that continuity that people in ministries like you really need in order to be able to build that engagement with youth. And this is something that sometimes goes overlooked. Another thing that you mentioned is the Aarhus Convention in Latin America. We have in Central America we have the Escazú Agreement, which is such a strong mechanism. And I believe that also hints at a really good advice for effective advocacy, which is to use all the tools available at our disposal. Because many times ministries like in the case of Georgia are organizing consultation, but are youth organizations actively monitoring what the ministry is doing and taking part in these consultation processes when they are opening. So really being there and maxing out all the engagement opportunities that are available at our disposal, and then to build relationships. I think it's something that you hinted at through the networks, through the working group that you mentioned. It's so much easier to build something once you have a bit of trust, once you have the personal contact, once you have the connection, once you have a shared experience. And this is something that I think helps us as young advocates go further, in our advocacy efforts when we have these strong relationships with the people in the national delegations. And speaking of opportunities to engage with the national delegations, COPs, and international events in particular, amazing opportunities for young people to get in touch with the policymakers who many times wouldn't be as open to a conversation if they were back home, because they have their busy schedule, because there are so many things that can come in between. But when you are at COP, you can organize a bilateral with your national delegation. There are even ministries and presidents, on ground. And just as a little personal story, when the first COP that I attended, there was no young person on a badge from my country. And we made a group. All of us were arrived at COP on badges from our universities, from different European climate organizations, and we had a conversation with our national delegation that we couldn't have had at the national level. And that opened the door to then next year have several badges for youth, a meeting with the president, a meeting with the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Youth, the ministers, not just the ministry, the ministers themselves. And that, of course, gave us a platform that we wouldn't have otherwise had at the national level. And I think this is something, if you plan on attending COP30, definitely use that opportunity to also build at the national level. And super important follow up on that, because it's not just, the meeting at COP, SBs, or whatever other international event. It's also building at the national level this continuity. And I want to wrap up by also acknowledging the importance of the local conferences of youth that you mentioned, and I feel like they are such powerful instruments, first of all, for capacity building, which we've seen from the regional consultations is a top priority for youth participation, for youth to be able to participate in decision-making processes. And there are more than 100 local conferences of youth all around the world. And for days, young people are trained. So it's such a powerful engine for building a new generation of climate activists, and bringing together exactly the youth that you have mentioned. Maybe they are doctors, maybe they're architects or lawyers, or they go in different fields, but we really need everyone on our side when it comes to climate action. And very importantly, the local conferences of youth, as you mentioned, come at the end with the national youth statement, which is many times integrated in the policy, the national policy. And it's great to hear that Georgia as well has received the national youth statement and has integrated it in the NDC development process. And I just want to take the opportunity to also mention the fact that these national youth statements then feed into the global youth statement, which is, by the way, also open for inputs right now if you want to contribute to it. And that is the main policy document that we as children, youth from Yango and from beyond the constituency advocate with at COP. And there's a chapter dedicated to the NDCs. Very much looking forward to building it together with the people on the call, with the people who are in the NDC working group and other youth activists. Thank you so much, Nika, for the conversation.
Many thanks. Thank you very much, dear Mara, and thank you, colleagues, for active listening for the process. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much, Mara and Nika, for such an open and insightful conversation. You both mentioned this kind of sustainability, this ongoing engagement with your governments, this continuity. I'm curious, maybe before we turn to the breakout rooms, if there's a very quick thought from you on how to address any challenges or next steps in implementation. So we talked a lot about kind of input into the NDCs, into policy documents, but curious if you have kind of a parting thought for those of us who are about to move into breakout rooms on how to sustain this through implementation as well. Sorry to put you back on the spot.
I can go ahead. I think, again, coming back to organization, it's so much easier for youth to be engaged when there are specific youth engagement mechanisms, such as a youth climate council or coalition of organizations that work on environmental and specifically on climate issues at the national level, because in that way youth can be engaged systemically, you know, throughout the processes. And when it comes down to implementation, we know that youth are such a big driving force for change. We are actually asking, you know, our governments to make better use of our capacity and our willingness to drive this green transition. And I believe also, just as a note, many times it's not the policy development that's the issue. The policy is developed in the right ways, the implementation that's lacking. So for us, if we are engaged in the process with the ministries, that's amazing, and really taking advantage of those opportunities. If not, to really monitor very closely what our governments are doing so that we can keep them accountable to the commitments that they are making and make sure that they implement them.
Yeah, I would love to add some points. Yeah, that's great points. And yeah, basically sometimes we are thinking about these processes from the perspective of young people. Oh, somebody is like a young person and they have to be on the table and they have to be part of the process. But at the same time, we should not forget that we are in the process because we are good experts, we are good specialists, we are experienced in this type of document reading process or policy making processes. So I would say like youth engagement is important, but at the same time, capacity building is very important as well. And these two things should happen equally at the same time, because otherwise it happens that it's going to be very artificial and it's going to be like unserious for many experts, because when there are young people who are not really experienced or have less experience in the field, it's not really nice sometimes. So at the same time, we need capacity building process. And I would like to emphasize that these climate change councils are one of the best tools for this. Otherwise, I cannot really see the like a little bit far perspective how it might work.
And if I can comment super quickly, because I feel like this is something that's often overlooked, and in our conversation as well, you know, youth are doing this willingly, you know, we're doing this for free, many of us, but we need the resources. Imagine if youth are doing this with less than 2% of all climate financing available, what could young people do, you know, with more resources at their disposal? So yeah, capacity building is really important, networking, involvement in the decision-making processes, but also the money is really important for us to be able to do our job sustainably and to really scale it up.
Yes.
Fantastic. This has been such a wonderful portion of this agenda today. I think we've all learned quite a bit more and are really eager to continue pulling apart some of the challenges you mentioned as we move into the breakout rooms. And hopefully folks are kind of nodding along with me, I think, on multiple points, but this kind of sustainable, continuous communication within national context, but also as kind of a global partnership. I mean, I hope folks are seeing this event today and these conversations as one of the tools you mentioned, you know, available at your disposal, and this connection to other partners that will hopefully further develop in these breakout rooms. We'll just build on that. So thank you both so much again for your time. We're excited to hear more from you maybe in the breakout rooms. As we transition, I will ask colleagues to show you the option. You'll have a few, in a few moments, you'll have an option to select your breakout room for the next part of the program. We will reconvene as a group for a parting video address from Leila Hassanova and Marcele Oliveira, the Presidency Youth Climate Champions for COP29 and COP30. Just a quick note that there will be no interpretation in the breakout rooms, so please select the room that fits your language needs. We will have 4 available, 2 in English, 1 in Spanish, and 1 in French. And your breakout room moderators will prompt an open and equitable discussion, and we ask that all adhere to Chatham House rules, which really just describe that you may speak of what was discussed, but please don't share who said it or where they come from, with whether that's an organization or a country. I have lots of notes from your registration forms, things you're eager to discuss, but I think Mara and Nika covered so many of them in the conversation just now. So we'll go ahead and turn to our breakout rooms. Please note, if you have any questions, there will be members of the planning team in each room happy to support you. Thank you all for your participation. We're looking forward to your insights, and we'll meet back here in around 45 minutes. I think folks are coming back through. Hopefully you had wonderful conversations and we didn't cut you off too early, and apologies if anyone was in the middle of sharing thoughts. Please make use of the chat function here, or continue to share your experiences and thoughts with us. We're very eager to hear your insights, especially over the next few sessions of the Youth Engagement Forum as well. I joined some of the breakout rooms and heard some really interesting points, quite a bit about the limitations of finance, both from the side of the government to engage young people and support kind of extensive and inclusive outreach processes, but then also for supporting travel to those processes when they do take place, as well as international events such as COPs. There was also some conversation around lacking the platforms. I think coming back to what Mara and Nika shared earlier, having some awareness raising and shared networking opportunities for young people to enhance their capacity, but also really just learn what the NDCs mean for their lives so that they can better understand how to support the implementation. And then some challenges around engaging rural communities. I think lots more took place that I wasn't able to capture, but I want to emphasize all of our appreciation for your participation today. So I want to make sure we have enough time to get to our closing short joint message from the Presidency Youth Climate Champions from COP29, Leila Hassanova, and COP30, Marcele Oliveira. They're emphasizing the importance of meaningful youth engagement in NDC design, implementation, and monitoring. So we'll go ahead and show this short video. Thank you.
Nationally determined contributions are more than just technical roadmaps. They represent how countries intend to turn ambition into action. NDCs set the tone for equity and accountability. But for them to be credible, they must be inclusive and ambitious. Young people are not just witnesses to the climate crisis. We are the architects of its solutions. From leading community action to influencing national policy, we bring vision, urgency, and a strong sense of justice into the process. Youth engagement in NDCs is not optional, it's essential. Meaningful youth participation ensures that climate policies are grounded in lived experiences and designed for long-term impact. The meaningful inclusion of young people throughout the entire NDC process, from design and implementation to monitoring, brings us closer to climate action that is bold, inclusive, and grounded in intergenerational equity. To governments, recognize youth as equal partners in decision-making, not just inside events or consultations, but at the core of policy design. Elevate youth-led solutions and create real mechanisms for participation, particularly for those from frontline and historically marginalized communities. And to young people, your leadership is not something you grow into. It's already here. Keep organizing, keep questioning and building. Push for climate justice, not just outside the room, but inside of it. Stronger climate action can only happen when we act together across generations, sectors, and borders. We need to move from symbolic involvement to real influence, where young people are empowered to shape the outcomes that affect their future.
It's not possible to talk about climate justice without the youth. The youth are a strategic player in the revisions of the NDCs and impress the government to put on the table the reality about the implementation of the NDCs development. The youth are facing the consequence of the climate change without the power in the hands. And at the same time, we are the most creativity and activist persons inside the territories, making the solutions, impulsing the climate education, looking for the conference, not just like important spaces, but space need that to be actualized for our emergency, for our urgency. We are not the future, we are the present, and that's the reason it's not possible to talk without us. It's not called the youth to mobilize or to be there, but consider all the solutions and perceptions the youth are putting on the table, like the only chance the adults have to reorganize and invent the world. We are here to help, and they need to listen to us because they need us. And for us in the COP30 presidency, that's the most important question when we talk about Montreal. It's not just one person, one youth, one decision maker. It's everybody together building one new world in different sectors. And all the sectors need the youth together on the table and making the difference, putting the most marginalized communities in the center of the conversation. We are here to help in building, monitoring, and talk about how the implementation of the NDCs can be looking for climate justice, for the territories, for the solutions, for the culture of the places are most affected now, and looking for the COP30 action agenda, this agenda is not possible without the youth. We are not just partners of the governments, of the parties, of the NFCCC process. We are the soul of this process because this process exists because of us too. So if we are the present, it's not possible to talk about the future without us. The NDCs is one priority for COP30 and beyond, because it's not just the NDC in one technical way. It's the implementation helping the most affected communities around the world, and fast and now. So NDC now is really important because climate justice is possible when we talk with the territories, the forests, the communities. Let's listen and build this together with all the partners we need to make these NDCs ambitious, faster, and with diversity in their implementation. No one behind.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to Leila and Marcele for offering these guiding words as we close the session today. I want to extend a thank you for everyone for joining us and sharing this space. None of this would have been possible without the coordination and insights from the teams at Youngo and IIY FCC. And I also want to extend a big thank you to colleagues at UNDP and the NDC Partnership for supporting this effort. We hope that you'll be able to join us for any of the upcoming sessions that make sense for you in different regions and languages over the next week. We will have different speakers, different conversations, though the structure of the sessions will remain the same. And all of us involved in the coordination here across these different groups will be analyzing and digging through all of the takeaways and your insights from these 4 sessions. We'll be sharing these online on the Youth Engagement Forum and the Youth for Climate platforms in the near future as we kind of are building towards COP30 and then looking ahead to the next 5 years of implementation. So please do continue to share your reflections and reactions and encourage your colleagues and friends to join the upcoming sessions. I think Marcele said it best just now, around everyone together building one new world. So thank you everyone for joining us today.